A very warm good evening to all of you. Welcome to the 187th session of Centa's webinar series for teachers. I hope all of you are keeping safe and staying healthy. The topic for today's webinar is leading with empathy, and the facilitator for this session is Mr. Syed Mustafa Hussain. A very good evening to you, sir. A warm welcome to you for this session.
Thank you.
Before I
Thank
hand
you.
over the session to our facilitator, a brief introduction about our facilitator. Mr. Saeed Mustafa Hussain is with the background in biotechnology and software development. He has always been passionate about teaching and learning. He was awarded City and Guilds International Certificate in Training Skills in 2003. His specialization is in the area of teacher coaching and curriculum development. He has also taught MYP, English language and literature, to years 4 and 5. Owing to the culture of sharing and learning, he achieved the high school English topper rank all India first in the Centa TPO Teaching Professionals Olympiad 2016. He is also a TFI certified teacher coach. Currently, he is working, or he is joint director in curriculum at Focus High School. He oversees the implementation of IB programs at primary and middle school segments. He also directs a team that manages the Teacher Training Center, that is TTC, under the aegis of the umbrella organization Focus Education Services, that is FES. Welcome to the session, sir. A very warm good evening to you again. Before I hand over the session to our facilitator, Mr. Syed, I would like to inform all the teachers that they will receive participation certificates for this session. So please do fill out the feedback form that will be shared with you towards the end of the session. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, Harsha. That was a very generous introduction. Thank you so much for that. And good evening to all the participants, and warm welcome from Hyderabad. And let us embark on our journey of exploring uh, this very dear topic that I usually deal with. So it's about leading with empathy, and there is this visual that you can see on my screen, and it will just take a minute to just look at the visual and just try to read from that image uh, whatever we can, or as much as we can, in 1 minute. So we can see that there is representation of two people, and you can see that
Sir, you need to
one.
share your screen, sir.
1 second. The, I thought it is shared. 1 second. Let me share the screen. Acha, present is not enabled. Okay, 1 second. I'm sorry for that. Okay, here it is. Yeah, I hope this is visible now.
Yes, sir. It is visible now.
Okay, Harsha, it is visible.
Yes, sir. It is visible. You can continue, sir.
Okay, right. So I was talking about this particular image where you can see representation of two people, and you can see that one of them seems like broken, and one of the other one is trying to communicate, is trying to emulate the the fracture in that structure which represents the head, and this is what we are going to talk about today. Okay. So, Harsha would share with you a link of Mentimeter, and we are going to respond on Mentimeter because it will collect your responses, and we all can see what you all are thinking. So that would be a very interactive exercise. The activity is that I would like you to name something. It could be a word. It could be just 2 to 3 words, just a very small sentence describing what it feels like or sounds like or looks like empathy. So you are now confronted by this word empathy, right? The empathy, that word is right in front of you. So how does it feel like? How does it sound like? And what does it look like? I just want you to think freely and fast. And let's go to the Mentimeter, and I'll just present this uh, voting slide. So you can directly click on the link, or use the code that is displayed above or on the forum chat to give your responses. So think freely. Just let me know what it sounds like, what it feels like, or what it looks like. If you respond fast, we will be able to see all responses on the screen. One second, I'm unable to. Yeah, here it is. So, feels like feeling others, uh, sympathy, put yourself into others' shoes, care, acceptance, sympathy, kindness, goodness, music. Okay, some people were able to mistakenly enter the Menti code. That's not a problem. Feels like butterfly. Is it sounds like or feels like? Okay, it looks like butterfly, and feels like kindness, and looks like sky. Very abstract thinking. Yes, feels like help, having someone comforting, actually go through the same emotions of another person. That's a beautiful expression. To experience something for others, stepping into their shoes. Yes, compassion, kindness. I hear you. Feels like understood, warm, and secure. Yes, reassuring. Very, very exciting and very thoughtful inputs. Kindness and understanding. So I think my work is going to be very easy, because I think many people already understand this perspective of perspective of empathy. Okay, so many people I can see that stepping ourselves into others' shoes, and that's one of the direct definitions of empathy, right? Feels here sounds like a soft music, a soft touch, a visual retreat. Okay, so I think we'll stop with these responses here. Okay, and go back to our presentation. Okay, so going back to our presentation, so we saw a lot of people echoing same thoughts, same ideas on empathy. That's wonderful, and I would just kind of let us just tickle our minds with this kind of scenario, and see what we can do, how we can respond to this. This scenario is: a student offers a reasonable excuse for not turning in the assignment on time and seeks more time to submit, requesting not to award late submission penalty. So I'm just trying to consider two scenarios. This is scenario one, which usually is a kind of a commonly occurring thing in a school setting or an academic setting. So Let's see what could be the possible responses. One possible response is teacher agrees not to award the late penalty, understanding his or her situation. And the one other possible response could be teacher allows her him to submit late, but explains that consequences ensure fairness and transparency. So these are two different responses. So let us go back to Mentimeter, and I will run the other slide, voting slide, so you can just go on responding to this. So which of the response out of the two looks like empathy? Okay, very interesting voting pattern I can see. Okay, yeah, things are getting closer. I mean, our definitions of empathy and sympathy have fine blurring lines. Okay. Okay, so I think I have got enough responses to just go back to that discussion. I'll kind of stop here. Let's say 40-60% will close here. So 40% people think, on an average, 40% people think that response to, uh, one second. So 60% people thought response two is empathy. 40% people on an average thought response one is empathy. Okay, so let us, that is what you think about. We are not here to contest that right now. So we'll go to another scenario, and let us look at this one other situation. One happens at a student or a scholar level. The other happens at a staff level. So let's have a look at this scenario. This is also a very usual scenario and can often turn up in a professional setting. A team member asks a supervisor for a raise in the middle of a year because he's facing an unexpected long-term financial challenge. So here goes the response one. There could be many possible responses. These are just two responses. Response one is that supervisor agrees to increase the pay, consequently affecting the salary budget. Possible response two: the supervisor offers after school opportunities to meet his financial needs and explains why budgets cannot allow a raise in the middle of the year. So these are again two different perspectives to reach to this problem, to solve this problem. And let us go back to Mentimeter. This is going to be very exciting again. I'm going to present the third voting slide, and you can go ahead and please vote which of the response depicts empathy. Please remember, there are no right or wrong answers. These are perspectives, and we are most likely talking about perspectives today. Great. So here, I think um, the audience is very clearly, aware of what an empathical situation looks like. So the vote clearly speaks out in favor of response two, and that, I think I'll stop here and just go back. I think the voting pattern is clear, so I'll stop here and just go back uh, to the slide and again look at this response. Yes, so you can see what the supervisor is doing here. Supervisor is kind of empowering the staff member and also not taxing or disturbing something that is a constant. So okay, so instead of a definition, I thought we can work out with this formula just to remember and to retain. So this is empathy in action. So we can, I mean, we need not be lost into terms, but we can just go over this and say that cognitive empathy, that is something that is happening, I mean empathy developing in your mind, right? And the emotional empathy, that is the feeling the pain in my head. By the way, let me tell you, there is a very solid body of research that indicates that when you empathize with people, when you feel their pain, same set of neurons are fired when you actually feel pain. So there is a whole body of research on that. So when you feel for somebody, it's actually physical, it's actually at neural level. So it's a very interesting thing. You can just Google it and read a lot about it. And then it is also supported by empathic concern, that is the genuine desire to help people, and that comes from feeling their pain, that comes from developing that thought of doing it. So, but yes, sympathy and empathy have very fine blurring lines. So someone also wrote in the responses these phrases, right? So I'll begin with that phrase itself. When you're sympathizing, you say, how I know how you feel. You are looking at the person, you see the person in pain. But an empathical response is, I feel how you feel. So you are actually feeling the pain, the kind of distress the person is going through, right? um, when you are sympathetic in nature, you are maybe sometimes we judge people for the situation. We say, see, why this has happened, why is this happening, why this distress, because you took a wrong turn, or maybe you did something that should not have been done, or maybe you should have done something immediately. So we immediately, inadvertently, we don't do it with very bad intention, but just to make a person see clearly, sometimes we offer this kind of judgment, right? But in empathy, we are not judging a person at all. What we are doing is, we are not looking at his past, we are not looking at the causes, we are not looking at his situation or her situation. And then sometimes what we do is, we give advice which is not solicited. So people sometimes don't come to us for advice, and I personally give advice when people ask for it only. So sometimes you just need to listen. So my boss, Mr. Minhaj, was the greatest listener of all times I have seen in my life. And I learned from him that sometimes many problems are solved, many situations are put under control. Sometimes healing just happens by listening. So once you listen, sometimes parents come to us and they talk about all kinds of problems their child is going through in the school, and that those are not actually the problems. So all you need to do is just to listen to them, make them feel good, and they'll say that though there are problems, but it's still like your school, and thank you for listening to me, and that's your day, right? So understand now, when you sympathize, you usually understand from your perspective. For example, what could you have done, and that is what matters at times. But when you empathize, you put yourself into others' shoes, understand their limitations, understand their capabilities, understand their eccentricities, and then kind of you'll be able to see why such a person is in that situation now. And when you sympathize, you really go and help at any cost. But empathy is all about helping a person help herself or himself, right? So you are empowering a person to kind of you get them out of that problem, get that out of that distress, right? So it's more about empowering people, and that takes a lot of hard work. So how empathy impacts, um, there are many, I mean, Simon Sinek, if you just listen to Simon Sinek or other great speakers, right? um, it's very clear that organizations that demonstrate empathy, that organizations that have culture of empathy, outperform other organizations, right? So there are many examples. But let us discuss how it impacts an organization, how it impacts a workplace. Now, most of us are teachers or school leaders, or parents, right? And so it's important to understand how empathy impacts. And once you understand all the dimensions of impact, the length, the width, and the breadth of impact, most likely you can come up with your own structures of empathy at the organizational level. So one thing, for very directly, it builds a culture of trust and respect. So when you empathize with people, when you empower people, when they are understood and cared genuinely, it builds a culture of trust and respect. And believe me, people who trust you work for you. People who trust you look up to you, right? And the same thing happens in a classroom. If a child is able to trust a teacher, the child is able to connect to the teacher, and then the teacher is able to bring out the best in that child. So similarly, in a workplace, right? This is especially for school leaders, for any kind of a leader, for any kind of a person with who is entrusted with responsibility of other few people, right? uh, Invest a lot your emotional energy, your time in building that culture of trust and respect. The respect that you give, the trust that you do, right? It echoes back. You cannot just talk about trust and respect and expect a lot of it in return. Believe me, you will have to invest in it, and then it starts paying you back. The rate of return is very high, believe me, and very soon it just spreads across the organization. It has that power of, spreading. It is very contagious. So, but again, the starting point has to be that school leader, that manager, that head teacher, or that principal, or the head of the institution, or the person who is running the school, the financial promoters as well, right? They will need to trust and respect the people they work with, right? And it spreads fast. And second thing it does is it improves the performance quality. When people feel connected, people work at a different level. When you develop that sense of belongingness in them, then people give their best. Believe me, there is nothing more beautiful than everybody giving their best in the organization. Why would they do that? Ask yourself, why would somebody give best for the organization or best for your team? Unless and until they feel they belong to that place and they have this connectedness, right? So the performance quality, we do a lot of things. We do professional development things, we do this thing, that thing to improve quality. We run here and there, we run around the world, and just sometimes wonder what can improve the performance quality. Few invisible things like empathy, trust, right? These things directly improve the performance quality. So Simon Sinek also talks about this person who works in a hotel, and he met him in a hotel and wanted to know what makes him happy in that workplace, what makes him work there. So he says that the employee says that whenever managers pass by, they stop, they smile, they ask, "How are you doing? How's your day today? Is it great? Are you feeling good?" So these kind of questions make him work, give him best. And the same person, he says, I also work on off days. I also work for other hotels, but I am all the time just looking at the watch to just sign out of my work, and that's because nobody cares for you at that place. So you see the difference. The same person gives his best at another place and is almost doing barely minimum uh, at other place. So if you want to improve performance quality, create that work culture of empathy. And this is what uh, any progressive organization would love to have and would invest a lot to have this culture of collaboration and innovation. Innovation today is not possible without collaboration at all levels. So you want to build that space and time for collaboration, right? You need that kind of glue that connects people, that kind of affection that brings people together, right? So once that base for collaboration is ready, then collaboration is enabled, because collaboration involves exchange of ideas. Collaboration involves agreeing to something, not agreeing to something, having a consensus, taking action together, collective perspective, building a collective perspective. So this happens with a group of people who respect each other, who care for each other, right? And then once this thing called collaboration is enabled, innovations can happen. Innovation, any organization that is not innovating is not going to survive, and that set of people or that organization will be, or its services will be replaced by a simple algorithm. So if you want to innovate in the age of AI, you have no choice but to be more human. The only thing that can beat all competition in the age of AI is being more human. So thinking of new ideas, creating marvelous things, right, requires collaboration. And empathy, the culture of empathy, can increase collaboration and innovation many folds. It will also impact and create a positive staff culture, and that way in the school context, because I work in a school. So in the context of a school, I can clearly see that positive staff culture translates to the same kind of culture among students. When they see teachers being respectful and kind and caring and loving towards each other, that kind of the students emulate the same thing. You will see that they are caring for each other. They are not having a cutthroat competition for silly things. They are actually adding lot of valuable stuff to each other, and that is what every teacher dreams of, right? So you will see that kind of culture transformation in the class, just because you have staff, the culture in the staff itself, right? And then finally, I think the empathy impacted so many levels, but I just limited my discussion to 5 points. So I think it also retains talent. Um I have seen personally in my life, in my work, that when you empathize with people, when you understand their point of view, and when you respect their point of view, and when you kind of work with them, right? You will see that the talent is not only nourished, but talent stays with you. Lot of talented people. What happens in many organizations is that people grow, become talented, and then they move out because they're always looking for better places, better opportunities. How will you stop that? How can you ask a person not to grow, right? So, but if you have that culture, I have seen many of our colleagues, though they had better opportunities, did not opt for them, just because they love this place and they love all the people around them, right? So I think a great HR strategy is not some kind of rubric, or not some kind of calculation, but the simple act of empathizing with people, giving them space and time, empowering them, respecting them, understanding them, and these things help them stay with you for as much longer as possible, right? Now, I know, I mean, we just can't have culture of sympathy just by talking about it. We need to have physical structures of empathy at our organization level, right? So I have just listed a few structures. There are wonderful programs that can actually help you build structures of empathy at school. You might also be already having it in your school, so later on you can share it with me, and I would be really really glad to learn from what innovative things you're doing to build cultures of empathy, because we need it most. Every one of us need it most in this time, especially in the post pandemic age, where we saw a lot of bad things happening to humanity. I think now the most important thing we need, the most healing thing that we need right now is empathy. So do share. Here are some of the things that I have to offer. Uh, Explore social emotional learning programs that will allow people to explore self-awareness, understand who they are, maybe through meditation, maybe through just by having circles of discussion, and then have some social awareness. What kind of society do I have around me? Who are people around me? That kind of discussion. So I know in an academic institution, in a school or a college, the teachers are usually overloaded with teaching schedules and all kinds of tasks. But I think we need to find some time and space to do this with the students, with the staff, right? So please try this. This is a really worthy investment, right? And also through mindfulness. I think mindfulness should become one of the core components of curriculum that is most needed right now. So because we need to think of about our actions, about who we are, about our responses, about our reactions, right? And we need to create that kind of mind that absorbs everything and not reacts impulsively, right? So I think a social emotional learning program would be great. There are many programs. You can take them right away, or you can custom it for your institutions. But I think there should be at least one or two persons who should take a lead on this in your organizations and really have it in place. Believe me, this is going to be a magical experience. And the important thing is not to just go for it. From my experience, I can say the most important thing is to keep doing it. The consistency of doing it decides, how successful you will be in the implementation of these kind of programs. So yes, self-awareness, social awareness, and mindfulness. That kind of training to the staff, to the students, can create magic. Another thing that comes to my mind when we talk of building structures of empathy is about community service project. So whatever we do in our organization, whatever we teach, whatever we learn, how do we take these learnings and go into the community and impact the community? That's a very important question. So community service projects can enable that. You can start with staff and student welfare things. Maybe it could be in the form of clubs, or it could be in the form of welfare associations, where a group of people are trying to understand problems around within the organization and trying to address them through a collective effort, right? So that connects people to each other, right? And when people work together, they expect that they will be looked after, right? So a welfare body can actually mean a lot to the school community. And then you can also extend this care and concern in the form of one very doable structure, is scouts and guides, which I think every school should do, every academic institution should do. It doesn't require much, it only requires spirit. So scouts and guides. So here the teachers and the children are trained to look after themselves, to look after the community, to look after the environment, to look after the country, right? What a beautiful thing, right? To learn something so important, and be a part of the change makers, right? Sometimes children often ask me at school, uh, how can I make changes in the world? uh, I know that change starts with me, but what can I do? What are the doable things? So Scouts and Guides is one answer to that. We are doing it, and believe me, children who are kind of passive in the class, when they get into Scouts and Guides, they are all charged up. They are they become heroes of the community. They are helping people, and that is how they radiate that sense of empathy for everyone in the organization. And uh, this is also one of the very doable things, and I think it impacts a lot. Creating this structure of empathy, counseling, and guidance services within the school, or you can take the help of community members as well. I have seen 21st century schools, or schools which are driven by innovation and are driven by child-centric pedagogies. These schools, they have one thing in common: they involve with the community a lot, parent community or community in general, or society around, or a particular set of people, uh, artisans, so any kind of community. So such bright schools, they usually uh, involve with the community. So please do identify people from the community, and you can involve them in counseling and guidance, because experienced people have a lot of advice to offer. And sometimes counseling, a psychological expert can be there at your school, at your institution, to talk to people who are going through trauma, through distress, right? And offer help, direction, which is what people need during that difficult time, right? So there can be guidance on self-help and therapies. And I think, I mean, uh, just by feeling about people doesn't solve that problem. We need to have these kind of structures in place. We need to do something on the ground to make impact. So yes, counseling and guidance, I'm sure, is a great source of empathy. And finally, I think staff and student voice within the organization, because I'm mostly talking of a school context. That is where I come from. So staff and student voice, but it is equally applicable for any kind of organization. So staff voice or student voice, right, where they can express what they feel, what they think like, right? Such a great place to be. So student parliaments or all staff meetings, where you can say, okay, what are the most important things we need to fix in the coming week? What do you think should be our priorities, right? And you are also having an agenda to discuss with them. At the same time, you are enabling their voice, right? Where And that has to be a place where people should be able to voice anything without being concerned about consequences or being targeted for their opinions, right? It has to be a neutral place. It has to be a place that absorbs all kinds of opinions, right? So once you create that kind of place where people can contribute without inhibitions, without fear, right, you will get great inputs. And sometimes our own perspectives are challenged by a lot of younger members from the staff, and that's a great I think that's a great opportunity. If we are challenged, if our practices are challenged, and a meaningful practice can emerge. And many times, while talking to head of the schools or principals or school leaders, I find that this one particular piece of action is lacking. they don't have time for one-on-one meeting with the staff at least once or twice in a year, which is so important. Either the school leaders or the heads of schools are speaking generally in staff meetings, or so it could be as little as just stopping by the class and saying hello and hi, right, directly to the teacher, instead of just waving a big hand to all the group, right? Two, come on, let's sit down and talk. What do you want to do? How do you want to grow? How can I help you grow, right? What is your own growth plan? How can I help you there, right? Are you stuck? I mean, are you meeting some barriers? How can we remove that? How can we collectively work towards our goals, right? So these kind of one-on-one meetings, at least once or twice in a year with all the staff. I know it's very taxing. I understand that school leaders are loaded with all kinds of hectic stuff, but still, this is a worthy investment. So when I want to do this, I will have to really drop off some things off my schedule and do this, right? I cannot do all the things, and including this thing. So I'll have to prioritize, and if this is a priority, I will definitely do it, right? So, and I think, especially school leaders, or anybody who is working in the organization, must model empathy, right? So we need to increase our visibility, right? This is particularly in a classroom setting. So you normalize classroom visits, right? Sometimes, or several times, I see that in different schools, that when somebody visit, for example, if I'm visiting a school, I would really like to go and visit the classroom, and some, I feel that teachers are taken aback. Teachers feel they have their space have been intruded. That's because it's happening very rare. So normalize classroom visits. So teachers in the classroom and students in the classroom are okay with anybody coming to their classroom and just having a look at it, or just trying to have a discussion with them. Set up listening tours as you go around, maybe once a month, or maybe once in 2 months. You just go around talking to students while they are having lunch, or while they're playing in the ground, or while they are doing some kind of a project, right? Just going up to them and just talking to them and asking basic questions like, how are you doing? What's happening? Is everything good? Is there something that you want to tell me, right? Basic questions, and they can open up a beautiful discussion. And if you note it down and follow it up, believe me, you are making small changes, but impact is deeper. And also build a culture of feedback. When some things are done, when, let's say, when an event is done and many people have contributed to it, ask for a feedback. How did this go? When you have parent teacher meetings, ask for a feedback. Did we organize it well? Did you like the setting? Was timings okay? Right? Continuous feedback, right? When you do that, others also feel the need to do it. You don't have to tell people to collect feedback. You do it yourself, and you will see that the person next to you is also interested in doing it, because it is giving vital information on how things can be made better. That is such a valuable information, such a billion-dollar information, right, from people. So, and then this is going to be my last stage of discussion. And if empathy becomes a culture, a workplace becomes a paradise. I would like to work in a paradise. I would like to make my workplace a paradise where people are understood, cared, and nourished. So thank you very much for being such a patient audience. Uh, I'm sure you already know tons about it, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share from my perspective. And now question and answers will follow. That Harsha will enable it. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. We'll give a minute, sir. 1 or 2 minutes for the audience to type in their questions, sir. Then I'll
Okay,
read it out. Yeah.
sure.
Sir, one of the teacher is asking for the last slide, sir, to be presented.
Okay.
That is
So
the, I
if
think, points, whatever you had.
is this the one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I extracted this from this beautiful article on Edutopia, right? And if you go to this, you will have a great read there. Is there a question on this slide, or she just wants to have a look at it?
They want to just look at it, sir.
Okay.
Maybe the next slide also. Maybe the next after a minute you can just, yeah.
Okay. So let me know when to move to next.
Yes, sir.
So here the keyword is paradise. Yeah, workplace should be a paradise, not hell. Where people are understood and cared and nourished. That is, I mean, I can't put this thing any simpler than this.
Sir, there is a question from Charu ma'am. She's
Mhm.
asking, can empathy be taken as our weakness?
Uh, yes, it happens. Empathy can be exploited, but that is why I was talking about structures. If you have structures in place, structures ensure that there is a level of standardization in empathy, right? So go for structures, make structures where, how, when you will demonstrate empathy, right? And how will you scale up or down the responses in a standardized way. The structures will help you. This is something that you will have to create for your own organizational setting. You might refer to some of the structures. You might read about them on the internet or in books. But again, I feel that you will have to understand your workplace better and then create those structures that ensure that empathy is not exploited. Yes, there is a danger.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that reply. One more question is there from Prachi ma'am. She's
Okay.
asking, feedback can be negative too.
Yes. Yes, feedback can be negative. Feedback can be words that you might not like to hear. But I think uh, imagine imagine a feedback where everybody just says that writes the word excellent. But the question is, what do you want feedback for? What is the purpose of that feedback? You want to understand how things can be better. If that is a simple case, then obviously you will get positive and negative feedback, right? Uh, Negative feedback can be converted to a positive action. That's how I do.
Thank you for the reply, sir. There is another question from Jayashri ma'am. She's asking, meetings management speaks, but teachers are afraid to speak. Why?
Because I'm not allowing them to speak. So if I have a meeting where I speak for a few minutes and then ask others to speak and ask them to speak for uh, uh, the important thing is again to structure that meeting. We can say these are some of the points I will talk about and these are some of the things that you can talk about, right? So let us hear from you. What do you think about it? It's very simple to do. It's just because of that. Sometimes we stick to hierarchy, and sometimes we make problems bigger for ourselves, right? So I should allow. Once I allow that, once I appreciate that, in fact, right, genuinely, then people will start. So if there's a structure on, again, it's all about creating that structure. How will or when I will speak and when you will speak, right? So when you do that, and when you invite people to contribute ideas, believe me, your experiences are going to be rich.
Thank you for the reply, sir. There is one more question from one of the teachers. They are asking what should be the measure of empathizing children at school? Will it not be a barrier in our approach to the students?
Yeah. Uh, Again, I would say that, because I mean, there is no metric as such for empathy. We cannot say how many inches, how many, you know, liters or kilos of empathy you can build in your classroom. It's not a physical quantity, uh, and it can be, therefore it can be infinite and immeasurable also. But again, we talked about both sympathy and empathy, right? So once you make a structure and you enable it, there are lesser and lesser chances of it getting exploited in the classroom. So that is why, for example, if I use the word please in the classroom, the other child will definitely use it. I have seen this in my own life, in my initial stages, days of learning. So when I asked her, could you please answer this question? Could you please take this somewhere? Could you please move aside so that the others can sit? So when I use this please and thank you in the class, this is one of the basic expressions of empathy, right? Once you do that, children will immediately emulate you. You don't have to teach them separately.
Thank you for the excellent reply, sir. Another teacher is asking how to be empathetic in an online session.
I hope I did, or maybe I didn't. But um, uh, again, uh, online, when you talk of online, interactive space matters a lot. If you are on a platform where you are provided for interaction, and you can collect responses as you move forward during the discussion. uh, that is how I imagine empathy in the online session. Uh, I don't know. I mean, sometimes in some of the online sessions, some of the online courses I did, I was forced to open the camera all the time, and sometimes things have been very monotonous. So I think a carefully thought and well-designed online session will mitigate the risks. Yeah.
Thank you for the reply, sir. Rajiv sir is asking, I would like to ask when things go wrong. Sometimes students are not minding the words of teachers. Rules are explained clearly. Then also they are not able to follow or they are not following. What to do in this case?
Yeah, that's a very usual scenario in all kinds of classrooms. Children are going to do that until the end of universe. Children are designed to do that. Children will test our patience. Children will test the boundaries of all the rules. Uh, the question that I ask myself is, right, there are many other more experienced people who you can refer to online or through books or through videos. Simple things that have worked for me is trying to understand the reason why the child is doing that. For example, if child is continuously distracting the others in the class, there is a reason. Most of the time, it's me who is not involving or engaging the child intellectually in the class. So when I get that kind of differentiation in the class, so I know it's very difficult in a class of 40, 50 people for a teacher to practice all kinds of pedagogical excellences. I know it's very challenging, but it's doable, right? So you need to kind of do a small research project on that kind of clout in the class or that particular child, on why, what are the reasons, what makes them not do what is good for them, right? What makes them distractive. So a little research on that child, a little interaction with that group, consistent interaction, and consistent interaction especially outside the classroom, right? In a very what do you say, not in a hostile setting, but in a very friendly setting, I find teachers find it very difficult to become friendly with students. I'm not saying friendly means you should kind of be friendly as their friends are with them, but being friendly is not about just hooting along with them. It's all about building that trust. A child should be able to tell you or confide in you anything, right? So uh, even though I mean, explaining of rules, giving orders or instructions to follow them can be the beginning, but let us not expect all children to do that. Some children will get extracted, some children will not be able to follow. We'll have to talk to them, we'll have to get inside their head, we'll have to kind of connect with their heart, right? When a child thinks, okay, this adult cares about me, your problem is solved. You are able to control that child. Control in the sense not negatively, but influence the child in a very positive way. Yeah.
Thank you for that reply, sir. Another teacher is asking, what tips can you give to empathize with a teacher or students who is very reluctant to be helped?
Yeah, I mean, see, we can empathize with people, and when I say empathy, I'm not saying it should be unlimited or it should be uh, exposed to exploitation. If there is a person who is reluctant to grow, if there is a person who has stalled the growth of the school or the institution, or if there is a person who is not willing to even accept help, uh, you can initiate the conversation, understand what his or her needs are. But then, if you see the person is not able to move forward with you, then that's the end of it. I mean, uh, what else? What kind of empathy can you do with that kind of person? I mean, the person has put herself or himself in a box, right? So you can alter their situation. You can give them new opportunities. You can kind of ask them what they like to do most and how that can be done in the school. You can ask them to share their hobbies and special interests, and become more visible. But if a person is stalled, if the mind is frozen, with a fixed mindset, I think that's the end of it. You cannot, I mean, even if you empathize, you really cannot help that person.
Thank you for the reply, sir. Another teacher is asking how to deal with the school leaders when they are partial to staff members and do not listen to us.
Oh my God, that's a very sensitive discussion. But again, we don't have to be so complicit to not to address it. I think um, this is again another usual scenario at many institutions. People sometimes become victims of favoritism or nepotism. So this happens in organizations, and one should understand that organizations are never free from this kind of pathology. uh, Things like this exist even in the biggest and the brightest and the most lovable organizations, right? These things exist. The I mean, I believe that the culture of transparency. You know, so, for example, if a person has to be promoted, and there is high risk of somebody being favored against somebody who is more competitive, right? So I think the transparency of the process should ensure that favoritism will not happen. And you might approach a person, you might approach the school leader, and just initiate that conversation that why don't you give um, us equal opportunity to present our ideas, to demonstrate our competencies, and then, because as a school leader, you would definitely love to work with somebody who is more enabled, right? So you don't have to do the double work, right? So, but this is work of patience, you know. You can blow up, and you can explode, and you can create chaos, but that's not the solution. uh, I think we'll have to work around and work with it, and just school has to ensure there is transparency across all these processes that will solve these kind of problems.
Yes, sir. We have many more questions. In the interest of time, I think
Yes.
we'll be towards the end of the session. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Saeed Mustafa Hussain, sir, for a very engaging and informative session for our community of teachers. I am sure that our teachers have got a lot and lot of takeaways from this session. Interesting session. Thank you so much, all the participants, for engaging with us today. To register for more such upcoming webinars, please visit my center. Thank you, sir. Thank you to all the participants.
Thank you all. You all have a nice evening.